But you don't have any issue starting the tight end for Pittsburgh, and it looks like you're following the rule here: death, taxes, and tight ends versus the Cardinals.
That's right. So Pat Freiermuth was on this list last week. We said to start him. He had a big game. And tight ends were ridiculously thin. And you don't have Travis Kelce this week. Gerald Everett, who's been a starter in a lot of fantasy leagues, he's out as well. So I'm going to go with Freiermuth. I know the matchup seems bad on paper. The Eagles' defense is tough, but they've allowed Irv Smith Jr. and Jake Ferguson to beat them for more than 14 points at home. So they're not great against tight ends. I think Freiermuth is certainly a good play. And then Irv Smith, you mentioned it. You play the Cardinals, and suddenly you are in the spotlight from a fantasy perspective. This defense has allowed 6 touchdowns and the second most fantasy points to tight ends. In fact, Jen, 7 different tight ends, 7 have scored at least 10 fantasy points against the Cardinals. So start Irv Smith.
Yeah, and I think he's still on some waiver wires too. So if you need a replacement for Travis Kelce, that could be your guy. All right, as far as who we're sitting at tight end, this one breaks my heart. I think it breaks a lot of people's hearts, but give us the tough news.
But you know what? Most people have to play Kyle Pitts. You drafted him in the 3rd round unless you were able to pick up somebody off the waiver wire. And I don't know that there's that many players you can pick up off the wire and replace him with. Maybe it's Irv Smith. But Pitts has been terrible. And part of the problem is that the Falcons are throwing the ball 42% of the time. In Marcus Mariota's last 2 games, 27 pass attempts, not per game, combined. That's really bad. And the Panthers have allowed just 1 tight end to score more than 10.4 fantasy points against them. So beware Kyle Pitts. And I'm also sitting Evan Ingram. He's playing overseas this week in London. I'm not going to try to do the accent. He was really good last week. We told you to play him against the Giants, but I don't love the matchup against Denver. Their defense has allowed just 2 tight ends to score more than 8.3 fantasy points this year, and no tight end has scored more than 13.3 points against Denver's defense. Their offense right now is a mess, but the Broncos defense is still pretty formidable. I'm sitting Evan Ingram.